Test, test,
Test, test, test, test, test,
Test, test, is that better? It's on though. If I turn it off, it does that. It wasn't on.
test, test, test. Let's see.
This is
Test, test, test.
Yes, it's turned.
test.
Test, test. Sorry for the interruption. I'm going to read this statement again. And it's today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. And just for those who couldn't hear us before, we have called the meeting to order. We've adopted the agenda. We have a declaration of conflict of interest by member Quinn on 2 items. And now would you like to read the?
Certainly. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It is required that I make a few statements, then I will explain the hearing procedures. This electronic hearing is being held in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act. The members of the Committee of Adjustment present are Alan Edwards, Barb Bridgman, Ruth Ann Brown, Lisa Grogan Green, Joe Quinn, and Sean Stokes. I can confirm we have quorum and that senior staff and planning staff are present. Public input on this May 13th agenda was invited at the following email address, planning@muskokalakes.ca. Now I will explain the hearing process. The planner will provide an explanation and purpose of the application, the date the notice was circulated, and planning staff's comments. All internal and external submissions have been provided to committee members by Friday, May 10th, 2024. The planner will present any submissions received after this date. The committee will hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent if they wish to add any information or to substantiate their proposal. Please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. The committee will hear from those in support of the application and those in opposition to the application. Again, please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes unless otherwise permitted by the committee. If you are here to speak on an application electronically, please wait until after the planner presents the relevant application to raise your hand in Zoom. If you are here to speak on an application in person, when asked, please raise your hand, and when you are recognized by the chair, please approach the podium, turn on the microphone, and remain at the podium while you state your comments for recording purposes. The committee will hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent to respond to any questions or concerns raised. The committee will then have an opportunity to ask questions, have a debate on the application, and make a decision based on the information presented at the hearing. Please note that the effect of written and oral submissions on decisions for consent and minor variances, along with the reasons for minor variance decisions, are both required under the Planning Act, and motions are pre-populated with standard wording. However, the committee may decide to add reasons and/or effects to the standard wording after voting on a decision. Motions have also been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting and are automatically written in the positive to assist in completing decisions as opposed to writing out each resolution. This does not in any way mean an application is going to be approved. When it is time to vote, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded. This is not considered a recorded vote. It must be noted the chair has a vote on each application and can participate in the discussion. There is a 20-day appeal period from the date of the decision. Building permits are not available until after the appeal period and if no appeals are received. Lastly, please take down your pink notice signs that were posted on your property to advertise today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Medora. And first application is P 1224 ML French, and that is Ms. Beamish. Yes.
Good. Thank you, committee. Just wonder, since I don't believe the beginning of the meeting really occurred, if member Quinn would like to reiterate his conflict of interest.
Pardon?
I believe member Quinn had 2 items to declare.
I mentioned that.
Oh, did you at the beginning?
Yeah, I mentioned it. There was member Quinn. I didn't say the number. I just said he had 2 conflicts. Is that right?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so Ms. Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The first application to be heard is consent application B 1224 ML in the name of French. The retained lot has no municipally assigned address. I would direct committee's attention to the consent sketch on page 31 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to create 1 additional lot with frontage on Brackenrig Road. Please note that the Township's Committee of Adjustment provisionally approved an identical consent/severance application B 10721 ML in December of 2021. However, the applicant did not fulfill conditions within a required 2-year timeframe, and the application B 10721 ML lapsed. The applicant is now reapplying. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 19 days in advance of this meeting, and 5 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Schneider, the Township's Chief Building Official, Matthew Irving, Township Septic Inspector, Tim Sopko, the Manager of Public Works, all stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, providing emergency fire response times, recommending additional fire prevention design details, and recommending that the owners review the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Comments were also received from planning staff from the District of Muskoka, requesting that the applicant obtain conditional permits from the District of Muskoka for the proposed severed and retained lots for access onto the district road, and that the lands be subject to an agreement with the District Municipality of Muskoka pursuant to Section 5126 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, respecting the location of wells in relation to the district road. District staff have also recommended that the appropriate development control techniques be used to conserve conifer thermal cover, deer feeding areas, and movement corridors. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following. 1, that a satisfactory registerable deed of the severed lot be submitted to the township along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the newly created vacant lot or the entire lands, whichever is less. 3, that the lands be subject to an agreement with the District Municipality of Muskoka pursuant to Section 5126 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, respecting the location of wells in relation to the district road, and that confirmation be received that an entrance permit is available for the retained and severed lots. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. And is the applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? I believe we have Ms. Ledger.
Yes, good morning, Chair Edwards and committee members. Terry Ledger, 167 Medora Street, Port Carling, P0B1J0. So this is just a reapplication of a consent that had been approved previously, and we've run out of time. Nothing has changed from the original application, and I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Questions from the members? Seeing none. Moved by Member Bridgman, second by Member Brown. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 1424 ML French, providing the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, a registrable, satisfactory registrable description deed of the separate lot be submitted to the township along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the newly created vacant lot or the entire lands, whichever is less. 3, that the lands be subject to an agreement with the District of Muskoka pursuant to Section 5126 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, respecting the location of wells in relationship to the district road. And 4, that a conditional permit be obtained from the District of Muskoka for the proposed severed and retained lots for access onto the district road. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
And the next application is minor variance, and that's 9A. And it's A 6726, that's 2838234 Ontario Inc. And that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 6723 in the name of 2838234 Ontario Inc. The subject lands are known municipally as 1613 Peninsula Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 51 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to recognize an as-built pump house and an as-built sun deck with an incorporated hot tub within the required side yard setback, and to recognize an as-built dock addition within the required side yard setback and as-built boat lifts, which cumulatively exceed maximum permitted dock width permissions. This application also seeks to permit this as-built development on an undersized lot. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 12 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, stating no objection to the application. A letter of objection was received from Aaron Rooney, a budding property owner to the northwest, stating that the as-built hot tub feature is too close to the shared lot line, has damaged roots of their trees, has left a significant amount of earth and mess on their property, and is right above their sleeping cabin. The letter further states concerns that the as-built shoreline structure development may have had negative impacts to smallmouth bass breeding grounds. A second letter was received from Mary Clow, a budding property owner to the southeast, stating concerns regarding the as-built nature of development, encroachment onto their property, and a lack of regard for neighbors and bylaws. The letter does state that the removal of the boat port canopy is an improvement. A third letter of objection was received from Michael Griffin, area property owner, stating that the as-built development is not minor in nature, citing concerns that the impacts of the development will have on the undersized nature of the lot, which fronts onto a narrow bay of Lake Joseph, concern for the retroactive nature of the request for approval, concern that the application would set a negative precedent, and citing concerns that the development will have negative impacts on an already congested bay. I can read any of these submissions in full at the request of committee. The proposed variances are summarized as shown in Table 1 of the staff report. This table was included in the circulation materials and can also be found in the agenda package. The variances include relief to permit the noted as-built development on an undersized lot, relief to permit a pump house and hot tub with a pump house and sun deck with an incorporated hot tub to be within the required side yard setback, relief to permit an as-built boat lift to be within the required side yard setback projection from the high water mark, and relief to permit cumulative dock width to exceed the maximum permitted. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be adjourned until such time as an updated satisfactory site assessment and remediation report is prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc., or a qualified alternate to address potential impacts to fish habitat resulting from the as-built boat lifts. The location of the as-built sun deck and incorporated hot tub be revised to comply with the minimum side yard setback requirement, along with the submission of an updated site plan, and the boat port canopy is removed from the existing boat lift. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. And we have the applicant or applicant's agent here.
Pardon?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Oh, good morning. Sorry, I couldn't hear the comment. My name's Albert Engel. I'm counsel for the applicant. Simply here to agree to the adjournment and if possible, ask that this matter be put on the June 10th agenda to address the recommendations set out in the staff report.
Oh, I didn't get your name and address and mail, your postal code.
Apologies. My name is Albert Engel, Engel. It's Fogler Rubinoff LLP Lawyers, 77 King Street West, Toronto, M5K1G8. Phone number 416-864-7602.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Yes, you may come forward. Yes.
Hello, Chair Edwards and members of the Committee of Adjustment. My name is Erin Rooney. I am here representing my mother and my aunt who own the adjoining property to Mr. Huff. My address is 569-703 6th Side Road, Ravenna, NOH2EO. And I've got a little bit of a PowerPoint to help demonstrate my concern. So a contractor was overheard saying it is easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. And this appears to be the approach of Mr. Huff and his contractors. He purchased a large cottage on a very undersized 85-foot lot and does not seem to have enough space to do what he would like to do legally. So instead, he went ahead and did much of his work outside of what is permitted in the bylaws and without a permit. Condoning and rewarding this behavior of blatantly ignoring these policies goes against the official plan as well as the bylaws, environment, and respect for his neighbors. And my other neighbor is here as well. Rick was issued a stop work. Actually, in light of time, I'm going to shorten what I was going to say. So I just want to briefly outline the experience by our family and the pictures to bring to life how it came about. So I'll start with the pump house, hot tub, and deck. 2 years ago, Mr. Huff's landscaping resulted in our storage shed, which is here, foundation being washed out and significant erosion to our property and into the lake. He offered to remove the ruined shed for us, which we agreed to instead of asking him to fix it, trying to be nice neighbors. This was clearly a mistake as the landscaping has caused a significant erosion into that space. That retaining barrier on the far right is on our property and it remains that way. In the fall of 2022, he asked my father, who is since deceased, if he could have permission to bring equipment onto our property to repair and replace his porch. When we asked questions about his plans before giving him permission, we saw nothing. And then he trespassed on our property a great deal last spring while we weren't there. As you can see by the damage on the next 3 pages, we can just go through them slowly. You can see on the left, that's what it looked like before. The grass is the property line. There's no natural foliage, but at least it isn't what you see on the right. And I've circled our sleeping cabin, and there you can see the property stake. So significant damage to our property. We arrived at the cottage in May to find a fair bit of destruction on our land, including trees that had been damaged by his equipment and up to 3 feet of soil at the base of several, which suffocates them. And that's on page 8 and 9. This is just more damage. You can see here the trees, how deeply they're buried. And on the next page, a number of trees that were hurt and damaged by his equipment. No acknowledgement, nothing to us. In terms of the boat lift, he has installed 3 boat lifts on either side of his dock, significantly exceeding the allowable dock width. The bylaw seeks to minimize the dominance of the built form on the natural environment, and these requested variants would allow over 50% of his tiny shoreline to be dock. And as quoted in the staff report, the numerical extent of the requested variances are large. And contrary to the report, the 2 Sea-Doo lifts on the right, on our side, significantly impact us because we can see them from the picture living room of our cabin that my aunt and I both live in. And watercraft, they say, would otherwise be moored side by side. It wouldn't be. You would put it one-on-one on the dock, so it's not quite as much in our view, and it wouldn't be raised. And then even worse here is the damage done to the protected type 1 fish habitat for smallmouth bass spawning. When the lifts were installed, this lasted for days and was really disruptive. So in closing, I would just like to review the 4 tests of a minor variance. We don't think this is a minor variance. Does it meet the general intent of purpose of the official plan? In the picture that we just saw, the cottage deck and current hardscaping currently cover a significant amount of this tiny lot. Additional coverage of the minimal remaining natural landscape will further diminish the character of the waterfront and will exacerbate the appearance of the built form from the lake. Approving the side lot variance would mean that both sides of this tiny property will be deficient in side yard setbacks. 2, does it meet the general intent and purpose of the comprehensive zoning bylaw? We don't think so. The pump house located right above the cabin that we live in will generate noise night and day. And the parking pad, which wasn't referenced, planned to have 2 cars sitting on top of the pump house. It's already elevated, will shine right into the 2 bedrooms that are at the back of our cabin where we sleep. There's not enough land left to buffer that sufficiently, especially at the elevation. And it will be a huge disruption.
Excuse me, can you wrap it up? You've got about 10 seconds left.
Yep. It's not minor in nature. It's double everything they're asking. And it does not improve the lands. We've seen the destruction. So we're imploring you to hold these offenders to account. And I'll thank you there very much.
All right, thank you very much. Would you like to say something?
Good morning, Chair Edwards, and good morning, council members. My name is Mary Clow. I live at 1611 Peninsula Road, Port Carling, POB 1JO. I am to the left or southeasterly side of Mr. Huff. We've been located at 1611 for almost 65 years. My parents first as cottagers, and then they were permanent residents, and then, of course, my family who raised our daughters there. I'm here today because I oppose this. As noticed on the site plan that was provided to us by DeConing Group, Mr. Huff has overextended himself with regards to renovations, builds, docks, boats, sea-doo lifts on his 85-foot lot without any permits from the township. I have to go along with it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission in this respect. Mr. Huff seems to have no regrets. We do understand that wanting to have all the niceties at your cottage, but to go ahead without permits or consideration for your neighbors is not admirable. Now, in stating that, most of the variances, other than the illegal boat lift and cover, are on the opposite side, which are the Armstrong Ireland side. However, his permanent boat lift and aquadome covering the lift does affect us greatly at 1611. It is noted, however, that the DeConing side or DeConing site plan is said to remove the dome, which will help us. We do have other issues, and I don't know if you have photos that I had sent in, Emily. I had sent in photos of the issues on our property along with the boat lift and the dome. We have on our property, we now have the propane gas line and the actual unit. It's on our property. We also have dirt, rocks, wire, piping for electrical, piping for gas, his garbage bin, trees, and they're all, the dirt existing around our trees along the property line also have been affected. All I can say is I'm not happy. I am really not happy with this. And for it to be called a minor variance, I'm sorry, it isn't. So in closing, I would say, unfortunately, Mr. Huff seems to have no regards for property, parameters, or neighbors. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Clow. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? No, it's fine. Okay, now we have been asked to defer this application, and that are there any questions though from the members at this time? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I just want to know if there's an official survey that has been submitted, so we know exactly where the property lines are here. Is everybody happy with the distances?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's up to the chair.
I will let you, if, and that normally, once it goes to what committee we don't, but, and that, go ahead.
We have a gentleman that was trying to
Okay,
get.
no.
Yeah.
Yes, you may.
So noted, no, there has been no proper survey done. We have had our survey done within the last couple of months. And no, there is no new survey done for the Huff property.
Great, thank you very much. Now we have a gentleman, I think, just on the screen for this application. If you can come on, your name, address, and postal code, please.
Yes, it's Mike Griffin. I'm at 1603 Peninsula Road. My permanent address is 1900 The College Way, Unit 305, Mississauga, L5L5Y8. And I'd like to speak to just to support the comments that have been made by Ms. Rooney and Ms. Huff, or Ms. Clow, affirm my opposition to this application. I have submitted some written comments, which committee referred to, and I reiterate those. I won't repeat them, but I think the point I'd like to make is that this application in particular, and perhaps similar applications in general, are pretty gross violations of the planning policy of the township and the intent of the Planning Act. I think it's up to the planning committee to enforce the policies of regulated and growth within the municipality, and not to permit ad hoc and unregulated developments just because somebody wants to do something. They just go ahead and do it. I think the planning authorities need to put their foot down a little bit in terms of regulating unlawful development and preventing unlawful development. And specifically in this case, this application, which is pretty egregious from a violation standpoint, needs to be rejected. And a clear message sent to Mr. Huff and to other residents of Muskoka Lakes that that there is a process for getting consent and for developing your lot, and there are limits to that, and there's a proper process. So on the basis of that, I think council should be taking, or the Planning Act committee should be taking action to send a message that this type of development and unlawful development should not be permitted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll ask again, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Are there questions from the members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I have a couple of questions. The first one, and I go back to, is there an official survey? And do you feel we need it, Ms. Crowder?
Through you, Chair Edwards, to Member Bridgman. I think we would look to the applicant's agent to confirm if there is a survey that's been done for the property. I don't have one in my possession, but I think we should hear from them.
So thank you. I think we need one. A second, and this is just maybe a clarification for Ms. Clow. I'm not sure that this body has any jurisdiction over what's on your land in terms of electrical stuff and everything else. And maybe somebody could help answer that question for her. It may be a civil action. Who can answer that for me? Ms. Crowder?
Through you, Chair Edwards, to Member Bridgman. So there was a number of concerns that were noted in the submissions. For example, the parking pad, the electrical that's traversing the lot lines, the soils and such that have encroached onto the lot lines, things like that. The encroachments are largely legal matters. If something is traversing over your lot line, it's it's becomes a legal question. This body doesn't see over like electrical that's traversing a lot line or something like that. The parking, it is largely a question of, does it comply with the township's site alteration and tree conservation bylaws? And such bylaws do permit for a driveway, but there is some parameters around that. And I know that bylaw is involved in the property. I think it's not so much a question of the driveway itself, but there's some fill that's gone on and some retaining walls and things of that nature that the bylaw department is involved in. So I'll leave that to them. I think hopefully maybe we have Rachel Miners on the call who's overseeing the bylaw side of things. I don't know for sure if she's here. Hopefully she is, but yeah, like the planning body is able to oversee the variances that have been circulated through the application, but a large number of the concerns are more so the jurisdiction of other bodies.
Okay, thank you. And I don't mean to start a discussion right now. We'll wait because I agree it needs to be adjourned. But my next question is, can this body take action to whoever the contractor is who's doing this work, knowing that it's illegal? I know we have charged contractors before, so that's my question. And I don't know whether that's Mr. Pink or whoever, but that's my question.
Thank you. Through the chair. Yes, the municipality has pursued enforcement action against not just the property owner, but if there's sufficient evidence to demonstrate who the contractor is, that has been pursued.
Thank you. So I would like to adjourn this too.
Okay, and I will ask on that. I see the hot tub is at the edge of the deck. And, you know, it's very close to the other person's property and there, you know, there's going to be a lot of people in it. Should that not be at least moved to the other end of that at some point? Because they're asking, what is it, 7 feet from the lot line? So that hot tub was probably within 10 feet of the lot line. And I know I wouldn't want my neighbor putting one within 10 feet of the lot line. And that, but it's just a comment, if you're looking at it, and it is definitely adjourned, which I would support, and I think everyone else would if I get a nod of heads. Okay, yes, would you like to answer? Thank you.
Through you, Chair Edwards. Yeah, part of staff's recommendation is that the sun deck with the hot tub feature be relocated to comply with the side yard setback. So that would put it at a minimum of 15 feet from the side lot line. Right now it's about 7. And if the sun deck is permitted in this location, the hot tub would be permitted as of right on or in this feature.
I guess one other question, you know, it seems that the boat lifts, they did have a slip there and I think it looks like it's been filled in. Is that right? So you fill in your slip and start adding on to it. So that is a concern as well, but thank you very much. We will adjourn this and we'll see you back in June and we'll have a survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 2224 in the name of Pittman. The subject lands are known municipally as 1077 Mackenzie Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 177 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to demolish an existing 1-story dwelling, shed, garage, and 2 privies, and construct a new 2-story dwelling with an attached garage and a single-story boathouse. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the township's manager of public works, and Nick Schneider, the township's chief building official, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Doug Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, providing emergency fire response times and recommending that the owners review the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. And the applicant or applicant's agent here. And I believe we have somebody. Is Ryan Lloyd here from Plans Group? Yes, thank you.
Good morning, Chair Edwards and committee, and through you. My name is Ryan Lloyd, agent for the Pittmans from Planscape, 104 Kimberley Avenue, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1N 1Z8. Thank you to Ms. Beamish for the report and for the recommendation to approve. So just quickly, yes, they're planning to redevelop the property. It's a net gain to the property. The redevelopment of the cottage will be pushed back to meet the setback requirements. The shoreline structures will be torn down to build a one-story boathouse, and we're requiring relief for 11% coverage total and 10.9% coverage within 60 meters. We feel it meets the 4 tests of a minor variance and represents good planning. So I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? No? The questions from the members? None? Thank you. Moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Bridgman. Be it resolved that application A 2224 Pittman to demolish an existing one-story dwelling, shed, garage, and 2 privies, and to construct a new 2-story dwelling with an attached garage and a single-story boathouse is hereby approved, with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 3,527 square feet, 10.9% over the area of the entire lot. And 2, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 3,527 square feet, 11% within 200 feet of the high water mark. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of approval. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. And the next application is A 2324, and that's Pilkington, and that is again Ms. Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 2324 in the name of Pilkington. The subject lands are known municipally as 1828 Peninsula Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 142 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to recognize an as-built 2-story boathouse, as-built single-story boathouse addition with a rooftop sun deck, and an as-built dock addition. Please note that the Township's Committee of Adjustment granted the applicants a variance in March of 2023 to permit a single-story boathouse addition with a rooftop sun deck to be 20 feet from the northerly side lot line projection. It has since been discovered that the resultant shoreline structures are in a slightly different location and closer to the northerly side lot line projection than permitted. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance of this meeting, and 4 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, Nick Schneider, the Township's Chief Building Official, and the Ministry of Transportation, all stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Doug Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, providing emergency fire response times and recommending that the owners review the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following: that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title, along with securities for the retention of vegetation and plantings to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer, and that the existing boat lift and dock not shown on the submitted site plan be removed. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much. And we have the agent, I believe, and the
Yep.
owner. Okay.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. My name is Jack Lorenz from the Coning Group, 3 Armstrong Point Road, Port Curling, Ontario, P0B1J0. So thank you very much, Zoe, for the report. It's very beneficial. As stated, there was a previous minor variance for this application, which it was my understanding that it was using older survey data. Upon completion of the dock, the township requested that a surveyor go out there to ensure that the structure was in the same location as previous. It was based on the comments from the surveyor, it was placed back in the same location, but unfortunately the previous site plan did not have the exact location that was stated on the previous minor variance, and therefore we had to reapply to get this noted and fixed. I have no further additional comments other than appreciate everybody's time and patience with this one.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition to this application? Other questions from the members? Yes, Member Stokes.
Just so I'm clear, is on page, I guess, 132, there's a statement that was also just made about the error, previous error. Is this the township's error, or is this the surveyor's error, or is this the builder's error? I'm just not clear on that.
Yes, go ahead. Who can answer that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Yeah, I would say that it's uncertain. It's rather technical. There was a minor variance that was submitted. It's uncertain if the survey was off, right? Or whether the dock just didn't move and it was determined after a survey was undertaken that the shoreline structures were not compliant with the side yard setback. There's some uncertainty about how we got from point A to point B, but what we do know is that at some point in the process, a survey was undertaken and it was determined that the shoreline structures were closer than what they were otherwise previously indicated, and hence the applicants have come back to recognize them.
Thanks. I just wonder, in reading it, it appeared to me that it was the township's error, but I guess that's not the case.
I don't think it is anything that the township had done. I believe it's just sort of, I think what it was the sequence of events, and the fact that a survey at some point through the process was undertaken that indicated different measurements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Well, personally, I'd like to see a survey, an official survey now for everything that comes in, because we're past the point of sort of that scratch and honor system, but that's just my comment. I don't understand what dock is being removed here. I know the boat lift is to be removed. Is that the sun deck at the end of the boathouse? I'm just having trouble understanding that.
Somebody'd like to answer that? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chair Edwards. Just one moment there. I believe we have a photo of it. It's not easily recognizable. It's a very small dock. I believe it's a floating dock. And initially, as part of the initial minor variance process, the dock was recommended to be removed. It's still there. I just need to find the photo. Page, it's figure 5 and page 139 of your agenda package. You really have to zoom in to see it. There's a red arrow that's pointing to the southerly lot line, and I believe the dock is to the left of the boat lift. There's another photo, figure 7 on page 140. You can see there's a very small floating dock next to the boat lift.
Thank you. I see that now. So this property used to put out a raft too, and that's considered part of the dock. So that would not be allowed under our bylaws, correct?
Well, it would be difficult to determine. There's no raft shown on the site plan. So we would need to know more details with respect to the raft to determine whether it would comply with the zoning. Applicable zoning requirements would be cumulative dock width and side yard setback requirements as well as length.
Any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
It's a comment and a question. First comment is I'm really glad that we're going to revegetate this property because it's got like manicured lawn all the way down to the beach. My other question is that a poured cement pad down by the boathouse, and is that legal to do that? I'm not sure. I know you're allowed to dock 10 or 12 feet or something on shore, but that's not attached to anything. I just didn't know what's allowed there.
Thank you for your question. I would turn to Ms. Beamish. She had undertaken the site visit with respect to whether she can confirm the material that it appears to be a patio structure that you're referring to.
Yeah, it's a flagstone patio.
Okay. And that's fine down there.
So again, it would largely be dependent on when the patio was installed. I don't believe that we've taken issue with the patio, but it's uncertain to us when the patio was installed. Perhaps Mr. Lorenz would be of some assistance in that regard. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I can't comment on when it was installed, but I do believe when the owner did purchase the property that it was already existing as they rebuilt the cottage previously, and he bought the cottage when it was new. I believe there are real estate photos with it there in 2018. I don't think that's something he undertook recently in recent years. I believe it was always there.
Yes, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you. If you'd like us to, we can certainly investigate it as part of if this application is approved as part of the site plan control process, and we'll just flag it and make a note of it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Moved by member Brown, second by member Stokes. Be it resolved that application A 2324 Pilkington to recognize two-story boathouse and single-story boathouse addition with a rooftop sun deck and a dock addition is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit the redevelopment of a two-story boathouse on a lot with less than 300 feet of frontage in accordance with the zoning provision applied to the lot with the 300 feet of lot frontage. 2, to permit a maximum cumulative second-story boathouse width to be 19.7 feet. 3, to permit a maximum side yard setback of 17 feet at the closest point from the northeasterly side lot line for a two-story boathouse. And 4, to permit a maximum side yard setback of 18 feet at the closest point from the northerly side yard lot line projection for a single-story boathouse addition. And 5 to permit a minimum side yard setback of 15 feet at the closest point from the northerly side lot line for a dock. The variances are granted as indicated on the plan attached to notice of decision and are subject to the following conditions. 1, that a satisfactory site plan agreement be entered into and registered on title along with securities for retention of vegetation and planting and to maintain and revegetate the shoreline buffer and the existing boat lift and dock not shown on the submitted site plan be removed. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you for your time.
We slide one more in before the comfort break.
It's up to you.
Oh, let's see anybody. Okay, and the next application is A27. That is A2724 Milne, and that is Miss Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 2724 in the name of Milne. The subject lands are known municipally as 1018 Tom Row Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 166 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to demolish an existing single-story detached garage and construct a new single-story detached garage. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, and Nick Schneider, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, providing emergency fire response times, recommending additional fire prevention design details beyond the requirements of the Ontario Building Code, and recommending that the owners review the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beamish. Is the applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? I believe we have Mr. Connor.
Yes, good morning, Chair Edwards, members of committee. Stephen Fauner, Northern Vision Planning Limited, 109 Meadow Heights Drive, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L1A4. I'm here today representing Noella Milne, and she is the owner of this particular property. I would like to thank staff for their positive report on this particular application. I'd like to think it's fairly straightforward, but you never know. And I do have a PowerPoint presentation, which I'll go through quickly. I know you want to get to break, so go ahead. Yeah, just the proposal I think is for a new garage. It is for lot coverage and setback as well, and it's setback from a right of way, but that's not changing. The existing garage is only 8.5 feet from the right of way as well. Next. This is a building location survey. I'm just going to note this. I'm not going to go through it. Just to note that the site plan is based on a building location survey. This was done by Bob Thaler. It was later updated by John Hiley. Next. And this is the site plan for the application. And I just wanted to point out in the bottom left-hand corner, it may be difficult to see, but the portion of the lands that you actually see in the site plan is really only about half the property. They also own further lands to the east that join this property as part of the same property. And I just wanted to point that out. Next. And this is just slightly closer, just showing the proposed garage there, the existing in red and the proposed outline in yellow, and you can see the existing right-of-way there as well. Next. And this is just the elevation drawing, and I just wanted to point out that the pitch of the roof, this matches the pitch of the roof on the dwelling, which I'll just show you in a moment. Next. And this is the existing dwelling on the property, and again, you can see the pitched roofs of a couple of outdoor deck areas, if you will. So we're going to be matching that roof line. Next. And this is the existing two-story boathouse on the property. Next. And this is the example of the shoreline buffer, which is it's quite a good buffer actually on this particular property. And there are some slopes that lead down to the property. You can see the stone stairs there that go down. Next. And this is looking back to the garage and the tennis court area on the property. Next. And the existing garage, which is a little bit tired out to say the least. Next. And the garage. And I just want to point out the little parking space to the right. If we were to move the property to the right and comply with the setback to the right of way, it would actually reduce the size of that parking space there. Next. And this is to show that we have about 15 feet to the traveled road. Next. And this is just shooting back into the property there. And you can see there's been a tree recently planted and green space there that we don't want to be moving the garage as much into the property as we can. Just again to save that parking space and to save that tree as well. Next. And this is just showing the right of way that leads past the property, and you can see the tennis court on the right. Next. And this is looking the other direction. They have a small parking area on the right-hand side. This is the right-hand side is the other parcel that I mentioned, and there is a restrictive covenant on those lands that does not allow for development. Next. So in terms of planning development, we're going to planning to go to 11%, which the OP does contemplate. Next. And there is a criteria in the official plan, and of course we have a large setback as well, 181.5 feet. And I won't go through those individual items, but we do satisfy the criteria that's in the official plan when reviewing a minor variance. Next. I mentioned the restrictive covenant and also mentioned the parking space. The height of the proposed garage is increasing. Next. So in terms of conclusions, the general intent of the official plan is being maintained. There won't be any impact on the shoreline vegetative buffer. Built form will not dominate over the natural form. And we've satisfied the criteria. Next. And in terms of the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, the side yard setback is more than triple and is required, and that goes for the front yard setback as well. Next. And it's desirable development because it will be used for storage of various items, so there's no outside storage, and the overall scale is consistent with development in the area. Next. And the last test of a minor variance, is it minor? And we look at impact, and it's my opinion that it'll have insignificant impact on the surrounding properties. The structure won't be seen from the lake, and it does not impact on any sort of natural features or constraints on the property. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Connor. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition? Okay, are there questions from the members? Seeing none. Moved by member Quinn, second by member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that application A 2724 Millen to demolish an existing single-story detached garage and to construct a new enlarged single-story detached garage is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 6,223 square feet, 10.8% within 200 feet of the high water mark, and 2, to permit a single-story detached garage to be a minimum 8.5 feet from a private right-of-way where such right-of-way does not form part of the lot line. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision.
Chief building official with his hand raised.
Okay, just a second. We have somebody else come in.
It's the chief building official.
Okay, yes, and now go ahead. Nick?
Pardon me, Chair. I just wanted to bring attention to some photos that I observed that hadn't previously been observed, I think in Mr. Fauner's report, and it wasn't identified on the site plan. Overhead conductors to the property or across the property, or wasn't clearly identified. It looks to me, and I just ask that I may have Mr. Fauner confirm, that the site plan indicates an 8.5 foot setback, perhaps to an easement, perhaps to a right of way. I'm unclear on what that is on the site plan, but that a photo of the existing garage appears to indicate some overhead conductors, and I just wondered if you'd be able to clarify the setback to those overhead conductors. Thank you.
Mr. Fauner, can you answer that, please?
I'll be quite frank, Mr. Chair, I don't know what that distance is, to be honest with you. I do know that we're, moving further away from those. I don't know what that setback is. I guess at time of building permit stage, I guess we will find that out. I know that staff had shown in their report the distance from the right of way, and the right of way and theirs that they had shown was highlighted in yellow, and we know that we're 8.5 feet from that. So I'm assuming that the overhead conductors will be dealt with at time of building permit.
Mr. Snyder, does that satisfy you?
I may just suggest, not knowing clearly on the site plan where those overhead conductors are, that some latitude be given in the location to ensure compliance with the required setbacks from the overhead conductors.
If I could just interrupt, Mr. Chair, I don't believe that you'll find a definition of overhead conductors in the zoning bylaw, and we are dealing with a minor variance to the zoning bylaw. So I'm not sure how I can really address that at this particular point. It is not part of the application, nor would I suggest that committee is sort of able to sort of have any power regarding that. So I'm hoping that we can proceed.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask Mr. Snyder then, if the overhead wires are too close to the building, they won't get a building permit. Is that right?
That's correct. And to clarify, my concern is that if the decision is linked to the site plan provided, and the conductors are closer to the building or too close and necessitate that the building be moved to a different location, I would prefer, I suggest that the applicant would also prefer not to have to go through the process again. So my hope is that there's some tolerance that can be devised in the approval.
Can I make a comment?
I'm going to ask Mr. Sharp, if we pass this and they have to move the building, they'll just come have to come back.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. You'll note that our notices of decision are worded such that any variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. And our interpretation has always been that, applicants are largely tied to that. In the odd case, there can be some flexibility, but at this point, we don't even know the extent of the change. So if this is a concern to committee, I think the best thing would likely be a deferral for a month so that Mr. Fauner and Mr. Snyder can collaborate together to sort out this matter, and we can return and carry forward from there. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fauner, would you like this deferred till you can check that out? Or if we pass it today, you may have to come back again for another variance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and I'm not looking for any additional work. So, I'd be happy to have it adjourned while we may have to do a site visit, for example. So maybe myself and Mr. Snyder, we can do a site visit and see, and we can come back with something more conclusive.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Snyder. I think at this point, if committee are in agreement, we'll defer this. Okay, it is deferred. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. Have a great day.
And we're now going to take a 10-minute break, comfort break. Thank you. Next application is A 2824 Freeman Myers. And that is Ms. Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 2824 in the name of Freeman Myers. The subject lands are known municipally as 1016 Kimberly Point Road, Unit 3. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 217 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to construct a new two-story sleeping cabin. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance of this meeting, and 5 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the township's manager of public works, and Nick Schneider, the township's chief building official, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Doug Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, providing emergency fire response times, recommending additional fire prevention design details beyond the requirements of the Ontario Building Code, and recommending that the owners review the Fire Smart Homeowner's Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. Following the circulation of comments to committee, comments were received from Chris Wolnick, the owner of the property immediately north of the subject property, requesting that the owners of the subject property preserve existing trees, relocate the decked walkway on the sleeping cabin, and remove the windows on the north side of the sleeping cabin to ensure privacy. The property owner of the subject lands, Jim Freeman, has responded to these comments by the neighbor, stating that the property owners feel the requests are reasonable and agreeable. These comments can be read in full at the request of committee.
If you could read them, that'd be appreciated.
Dear committee members, I am writing to convey concerns about the above noted file number being heard May 13th, 2024 at the Committee of Adjustment meeting. My wife and I are owners of 1016 Kimberly Point Road, Unit 1, which is immediately northwest of the subject property. It is unfortunate that we received information about the Freeman Myers variance request to construct a two-story sleeping cabin from the township rather than directly from Jim and Donna. I feel confident that we would have been able to come to a compromise as neighbors. Our cottages are part of a larger community. They were built over 100 years ago as rental properties and are in quite close proximity. The cottages are, however, staggered to give the illusion of more space between them. The proposed structure is in line with our cottage and more specifically our bedroom window. We understand the desire for an overflow bunkie. However, a 300 square foot two-story sleeping cabin with over 150 square feet of decking on a small lot with a neighbor in close proximity is a lot. Our ask: the 3 large trees between the proposed structure and the property line are maintained. There is clearly 1 large tree that will need to be removed. The decked walkway along the side of the structure to be built on the south rather than north side. This decked walkway will be used as passage from the newly constructed driveway and parking area to the main cottage. Moving it to the south side will maintain more privacy at our bedroom window area. This will also allow the existing plantings between our properties to remain undisturbed. Lastly, we would ask that the north side windows be reduced or removed from the plan. Thank you for your consideration. Chris Wolnick. Dear committee members, I would like to thank Chris for pointing out some things we failed to recognize on our site plan application. I am confident that we can come to a compromise as neighbors, as Chris suggests. We did feel as though we had informed our neighbors of our intention to build a bunkie, as Donna had spoken to Anne on several occasions, and in fact showed her the design of the bunkie at the cottage show March 30th. More to the point is that we failed to inform them of the latest location for the bunkie. The original location we had chosen for the bunkie was as far as possible away from the Wolnick property. However, at the pre-planning discussion meeting, our designer, Chelsea Mitchell, found out from the township that we were non-compliant to the flood zone requirements. The township recommended a new location, which Donna and I reviewed and asked for it to be moved away from the large trees in order to preserve them. To conclude, we agree to all the requests Chris made. They are reasonable requests and match our desire to preserve trees, maintain privacy, and preserve the heritage of our community. Jim Freeman. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the agent or owner okay?
Hello, good morning. My name is Chelsea Mitchell. I'm from Spencer Douglas Planning and Design, located at 3785 Muskoka District Road 169. We are unit number 2 and PO Box 120. So just in quick summary, there was a previous minor variance granted for this property for an addition to the rear of the cottage. It was a 304 square foot addition. It was approved. There is a site plan agreement entered into for that. Once getting into pricing and looking into the impact of having a full foundation of an addition, the property owners look to explore the possibility of having a bunkie instead. This proposal is for that bunkie. I'd like to note the bunkie complies with the side yard setbacks. It is the same footprint as the proposed addition that was granted for the minor variance. The owner's intent is to preserve as many trees as possible. And I'd like to point out that on the site and on the site plan, there are a few parameters that the owners are working within. There is a floodplain on the property that is substantial. It covers a lot of the rear of the property. The only location available is in this region behind the existing cottage. So the areas that we're working within are compliance with the floodplain, compliance with the side yard setbacks, and the owner's intent to preserve as many trees as possible. The neighbor's conditions that have been read, the owners have agreed with. They are okay to have the deck flipped to the other side of the bunkie and remove the north windows on the proposal. I'm here to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone speaking in opposition to this application? Do we have questions from the members? Yes.
So, just so I understand, with the comments made in the letter from the neighbors about, I guess specifically the trees and the windows, those have been agreed to be done by the neighbors, or does this need to form part of the resolution?
Yes.
Through you, Chair Edwards, I think what's in front of committee is a sleeping cabin that doesn't comply with the maximum permitted lot coverage. The sleeping cabin complies with the minimum side yard setback. In fact, it exceeds it. From what I'm hearing, it seems like the neighbors have reached a mutual agreement. There's now understanding that the trees that were of a concern aren't going to be removed. The sun deck, which is compliant, it sounds like the applicants are willing to reconfigure it so that part of it is not facing the neighboring property. And it sounds like they're agreeable also to redesign so that there's no windows facing the neighboring property. To me, you know, those considerations are between the property owner, the applicant, and the neighbor. But I'm happy to provide insight if committee is considering how to lock that in as part of this approval. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, it's fine with me. It sounds like the process worked the way it's supposed to work. So hopefully the neighbors are amenable to keeping their word.
any other questions or comments? Thank you. Moved by member Bridgman, second by member Brown. Be it resolved that application A 2824 Freeman Myers to construct a two-story sleeping cabin is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. One, to permit a two-story sleeping cabin on an undersized lot, and two, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 1,590 square feet, 8.8%, within 200 feet of the high water mark. These variants are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you.
And the next application is A 2924 Shuchuk. And that is Kelly Pierce.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 2924 in the name of Shuchuk. The subject lands are known municipally as 1077 River Street. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 239 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to recognize an as-built dock structure that is within the required minimum side yard setback and beyond the maximum permitted length. The applicant also proposes to construct a new sun shelter on this dock within the required minimum side yard setback and which exceeds the maximum permitted lot coverage. The applicant also proposes to demolish an as-built boat port canopy structure over the current dock. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 10 days in advance of this meeting, and 8 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from the Township's Manager of Public Works, Tim Sopko, stating no objection to the application. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating no objection to the application, but that a building permit will be required for the as-built and proposed development. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, listing fire response times and recommending that the applicants consult the Fire Smart Owner's Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. He also recommended that as construction will be occurring on the property, we encourage pre-planning with the fire department concerning fire risks during this vulnerable phase of development. A letter of objection was received from Ann Buck, a property owner on the opposite side of the Moon River, stating that the structure on the property is already too large on a relatively small lot and that the dock is too long and should not be permitted to extend past the permitted 66 feet as it is a narrow part of the river. A second letter of objection was received from Joyce Wilson, another property owner on the opposite side of the Moon River, stating that the length of the proposed dock is dangerous and in a narrow part and busy section of the river. They also state that the current cottage is too large on a lot with limited trees and that adding another structure would detract from what is valued in Muskoka, being the trees, nature, and the view. 3 more letters of objection were received after circulation of comments to committee and can be read in full at the request of committee. I have summarized them as follows. So Kim Blaine, a property owner on the opposite side of the Moon River, submitted her letter of objection stating that Mr. Shuchuk has already far exceeded lot coverage, contravening plans originally submitted and approved by the township. for the building of his residence. She also states that allowing Mr. Shuchuk to proceed with his waterfront variances will prompt others on our already overtaxed Moon River to apply for additional variances of their own. Janie Graham, a property owner on River Street, submitted her letter of opposition stating that they were greatly dismayed to realize that the property is already in violation of a number of township bylaws and that they are only now seeking approval for. She wishes to register her opposition to the granting of any new variance applications until such a time that the property the property is already in violation of are appropriately remedied. She states that the length of the existing dock is of particular concern given the density of the bay in which it resides, as well as the overall lot coverage that exceeds current township codes. And lastly, we received a letter this morning from Kelly Wimbush, and I'm pretty much going to read it in full. So she stated, Mr. Shuchuk has already greatly overextended the boundaries of his property in his initial build. It is unfortunate that he did not have the foresight to have purchased a larger property on the lake. The river has suffered a very large blemish since the unfortunate building was allowed to be built on the property in the first place. And she also stated that we should disallow any further extensions. So the proposed variances are summarized in table 1 of the report and shown on the screen. Staff note that the above requested variances A and C are reduced from the variances that were circulated with the notice of hearing. Since circulation, staff have remeasured and scaled the drawings and found that the variances required are actually less than what was requested on the application. So if committee is considering approval of the application, the resolution written in the positive has been updated to include these reduced figures. Staff would also note that the dock on the subject property has existed since at least 2013, and no changes to the location, length, or size are proposed at this time. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved subject to the following: that an amending site plan agreement be entered into along with securities to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer and to implement the recommendations of the scoped environmental impact study dated February 15th, 2024, prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, and that the as-built boat port canopy structure be removed. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have Mr. Schback, I believe.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Stefan Sherbach with Planscape, 104 Kimberley Avenue in Bracebridge, P1L 1Z8. I'm here representing Bob Shuchuk and his family, and I'd just like to discuss a few points for your consideration with this file. First of all, I'd like to thank staff, as the owner has had many discussions with various staff throughout this entire process, including when he was redoing the dwelling that's on the property. As mentioned in the staff report and mentioned by staff, the current dock was replaced almost 10 years ago. This dock has been in existence, I guess, for around 11 years. And I understand that the owner had included this revised dock configuration on a planting plan that formed part of the old site plan agreement. And unfortunately, he continued to replace this structure as per the plan. It really wasn't until about 3 years ago when he was seeking direction directly from staff to construct this 197 square foot sun shelter on top of this existing dock. And it was at this time that staff and the owner had realized their error in replacing this the dock itself. Regardless, the current structure was moved further away from the abutting property line. And it was positioned entirely on top of bedrock. Really, there was no shoreline vegetation that was removed to replace this structure. And the application in front of you today is to place this 197 square foot sun shelter directly on top of this open sun deck area. During our pre-consultation with staff, it was determined that an ecological review was required to address the Muskoka Heritage Area. Riverstone Environmental was retained, and they completed their assessment. No real surprise here, since the proposed structure is to be placed on top of this existing onshore dock or deck. There will be little or no impacts to the natural environment with the consideration of this structure. Riverstone's report required some areas of the shoreline to be restored, and the owners have no concern with this requirement. And more importantly, I agree with staff's full assessment of the 4 tests of the minor variance in front of you. I also agree with their official plan analysis, and I also support the recommendations with the conditions in front of you. The owner will remove this awning structure, not necessarily a boat port. It's just more of the steel areas that have an awning there. He's agreed to remove that. And he's just also looking for some additional clarification in terms of what types of shoreline restoration are required, or if he just simply needs to follow the recommendations from the Riverstone report. Again, we can work with staff through that. And then finally, I'm surprised that there's a number of letters of objection. It's unfortunate that I didn't get to see them before this meeting, but regardless, there seems to be 2 main issues in front of you. One with respect to the length of the dock. Well, again, the dock has been in place for over 10 years. It hasn't posed a problem for anybody for over 10 years. Looking at the air photo that's on the agenda as well, you can see that there's an even longer dock on the neighbor's property that extends further out, and the property sort of sinks into a little bit of a bay. So any issues related to navigation, I don't believe would exist in this situation. Or if there were complaints or issues, they probably would have known about it by now. And finally, with respect to the lot coverage, at the time, when the dwelling was constructed, the lot coverage, I believe, was at 35%. So everything was in full compliance, and it wasn't until after the fact that this property had actually a reduced frontage because there was only partial servicing, not frontage, reduced coverage because this property has a single service, not double service. So they're really only looking for a small increase in lot coverage. Again, if this was a serviced area, they'd be well below the coverage itself. And again, I think staff have appropriately addressed that in the report in front of you. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition? No? There are questions from the members? Yes.
Just one, there's a comment, it's on page 229. And it says, sorry, find it here, 231, 229. It says, with this said, any comments from the southeasterly neighbor should be considered and addressed as necessary. None have been received at the time of writing. I believe that's the individual with the long dock, the longer dock. And I just want to confirm that there was no comments from that neighbor. None of those comments were from that neighbor.
I don't believe so, no.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I'm just curious now, the dock that has been there for 10 years, was there a building permit for that dock? Is it a legal dock?
Through you, Chair Edwards, it's my understanding that there was no permit issued for that dock. I believe at the time that they went to apply for their sun shelter structure, it was found that that dock did not have a building permit. So that's why we have recommended the variance.
Okay, thank you. So Chair Edwards, I have a real problem with the over coverage on this. This property has a lot from the lake in terms of building, and I think that's the covered sun area is just going to add to it. And the dock, I mean, the neighbors is much longer. So I have to agree with Mr. Zurbach that in terms of an argument that the dock is too long, it's hard to make that, for me, it's hard to make that a big argument. So those are my comments.
Okay, anyone else? I just like clarification. You said that it's 70 feet now. And I'm looking at page 239, which shows a measurement at 77.6 feet. The original application was 78 feet, I believe. And that, what is the right length? Was it actually measured or just scaled off a drawing?
Through you, Chair Edwards, I do apologize. There has been a bit of confusion around the dock length measurement. Mr. Pink, Ms. Spees and myself have all collaborated and have taken a scaled measurement off the submitted site plan and came up with a length of 70 feet, hence the change in our report and hence the change in your resolution that's before you today. Thank you.
Okay, now, my next question then is if we went up to tape measure and we measured 77 feet, that we're only giving them 70 feet, would they have to come back?
Through you, Chair Edwards, at the time that a final inspection is undertaken by building staff, if it's determined that the dock is longer than what has been indicated in the notice of decision, then the dock would not be compliant with the maximum permitted length. And a variance would obviously be needed at that point. Thank you.
That's what I thought. That's what I'm really being picky on this. Like, if it's an existing dock for over 10 years, say, and it's 77.6 feet or that, would we not be allowing that just in case? Or would we give 70 feet and then have to come back?
I believe that the 77.6 foot measurement that's indicated on the site plan is not the accurate length measurement. The maximum permitted length for a dock is measured from all points along the shoreline. And because of the configuration of the shoreline, there's a portion that juts out. And that the length would be measured from that part of the shoreline. So I believe we're comfortable with the 70-foot length measurement. And I believe we had also advised Mr. Sherbach of the same, and I don't believe that he had any objections to a 70-foot length measurement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You had a question?
No, I did, but when I look at this, the shape of the shoreline, it looks to me like, you know, some of the shoreline where it's very shallow, there's retaining walls. It's sort of maybe sand has been put in there to help to assist with something that's already naturally there. And then if you sort of follow along and go to the neighbor, you can see the neighbor's property juts out. So I would say that probably that dock is about 70 feet. Maybe even an argument could be made that it's less. I don't know. I don't have a measuring tape when I'm not there, but I think 70 feet is about right. So that's just a comment.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes. Member Quinn.
It was mentioned that there's a metal structure, I thought, that was gonna come down, but I don't see that any figure for what that 197 replacement on the dock might be.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. If you refer to page 237 of your agenda package, you have to really zoom in, but figure 7 identifies what we're calling a boat port slash covered canopy structure. And that's the structure that will need to be removed as a condition. And I would also just note as well, I believe Mr. Sherbach put his hand up when I was last speaking, just in regard to the dock length measurement. I just wanted to flag that for you, Chair Edwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, satisfied? Okay, any other questions or comments? Yes.
Just to reiterate, Chair Edwards, the dock length stays, I think, but I am opposed to the sun shelter being allowed for the overcoverage. So just wanted to reiterate that. I don't know if anybody else.
I just wanted to say that I agree with that. That just seems excessive, looking at the lot size and the coverage.
Okay. Anyone else have any comment on that? Before we vote on it? Yes.
What's gonna happen to that sun, this, what they call the sun shelter today, whether we approve this or not? Would that stay? Or does it come off?
The one at the edge, at the
On
front
figure
end?
7 on
I
the
believe
dock?
let's read it, and then we can go from there then with comments. Moved by member Stokes, second by member Quinn, be it resolved that application A 2924 says it to demolish an existing boat port and recognize an as-built dock structure and to construct a sun shelter is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a dock to be 70 feet in length from the high water mark. 2, to permit a minimum side yard setback of 6 feet at the closest point from the southeasterly side lot line for a dock. 3, to permit a dock to be located in the front yard, a minimum distance of 15 feet. To permit a side yard setback of 13.5 feet at the closest point from the southeasterly side lot line for a boat house or sun shelter. And 5, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 4,955 square feet, 17.8% over the area of the entire lot. These variances are granted and are shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following conditions. 1, that amending site plan agreement be entered into along with securities to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer and to implement the recommendations of the scope environmental study dated February 15th, 2024, prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, and that the as-built sunport / canopy be removed. This removal shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Now, any comments? Yes.
I'm gonna support member Bridgman on this as well. I think that in having you read all of that, I agree with everything except for the lot coverage at 17 some odd percent. And I think when you read it, it says that the condition of approving other variances is conditional on them removing what's at the end of the dock.
Yeah, at the end of the dock, that's right, and then the sun shelter. Now, and I believe it's 20% lot coverage in that area now because it's only on one service. Is that right, rather than 35?
Through you, Chair, it is 15% is the permitted
Sorry.
lot coverage.
What is the-
15,
You're only allowed 15%, you said?
correct, yes.
Okay,
And they're
and the-
proposing 17.8.
And this makes it 17.8% then, okay. Just so everyone is clear. Yes.
The reason I ask about that boat port or that boat cover, I think that a sunshade on the, closer to shore on the back dock, if it's one versus the other, I think it would be better for the neighboring properties to have that as opposed to that temporary canopy or whatever the sunshade is further in the dock. And that's how I feel about that.
Okay, then, yes.
You're asking again, I want to see both gone, the boat canopy plus the sun.
Okay, no, it's fine. And that? What's your comment on that?
I agree, both gone.
Both gone, okay. And that's so, yes. Sorry, Stefan, we're gonna let you speak again on this, which we normally don't do, as you know.
Yes, thank you very much. No, I'm seeing a change with the committee. I mean, just for clarification, the sun shelter is not there. It is proposed. And as staff duly noted in the report, the removal of this canopy area, the applicants do agree to remove that because technically under your zoning bylaw, that would be considered as coverage. As soon as you put a canopy on top, it's a covered boat port that is coverage, which would have the effect of increasing it. That canopy area is much larger than the 197 square feet. That's the only thing we're asking here is the 197 square feet to be removed from the boat port canopy area onto an existing sun shelter. So in effect, you are removing the built form along the water, moving it onto shore, as one committee member noted, and pushing it further back away from the water. With respect to the dock length, again, I think I appreciate the committee members are satisfied with that. It really only is a tip of one of the docks that's extending beyond the 70 feet. The error in numbers was likely my fault. I think we just we were measuring it incorrectly based on the irregular shoreline and likely measuring it from portions of the dock that were on the land. So again, that's my fault. I think the dock seems to be fine. It's the coverage issue. And I believe, just final point, when this dwelling was constructed and the docks, the lot coverage was at 35%. And I believe the municipality changed their lot coverage provisions during that time, which automatically put them into a legal non-complying situation with lot coverage. So again, from the only thing we're asking for now is 2%, which accounts for 197 square feet of a sun shelter that is open on all four walls. It just has a roof. It is an area just to get some shade in the summer months.
Okay, I guess my question to you, I'm reading what the committee are saying. They do not want to approve the sun shelter. But the other variances, I think they seem to be living with. So what I'm asking you, I guess, is the sun shelter, if it goes and we leave the existing dock the way it is and everything else like that, will your client be happy with that, for the simple fact that I don't know if we vote now, if it will go down or not. My assumption is it may.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the only reason we're here is because of the sun shelter.
But we're also recognizing the length of the dock.
And that was determined sort of through this process. So yes, I agree. We're looking at recognizing these docks that have been in place for 11 years. Understand that it was built without a permit. The error, it wasn't done intentionally. It was on a site plan, and I think there was plenty of discussions with Mr. Pink at the time. With the owners, I wasn't part of that discussion. I was brought in after the fact. So I think throughout this process, I mean, it is their intention, to build that sun structure, and yes, secondary recognize the replaced docks.
Okay. Yes.
Just a comment, Chair. I think we're missing the point that boat port is legal too, because it's way over the coverage. Am I not correct? So it isn't just I think that has to be considered in this. What you're really saying is we're reducing how much over this is the request. Am I not correct, Mr. Sharp? You look like you're ready to say something.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Member Bridgman is correct. And I did want to just clarify that the boat port, what it's covered, I believe would count towards lot coverage and would increase the coverage beyond what is otherwise permitted. In fact, I believe it's as large, if not larger, than the sun shelter that's in front of you today. Staff have recommended that the boat port / canopy structure be removed if you're considering approval of the application, be it in whole or in part. Thank you.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from the committee, Mr. Sharp, is they do not want the sun shelter in. Can they pass this so that they can have the 70-foot dock and make it legal? And take that out? I don't know. What I'm asking is, it would make it legal then, but what they're saying is that the structure, the lean-to boat port is removed, and they're not approving the sun shelter. Is that what I'm hearing?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the resolution can be amended with committee's input and direction. So if you're not in favor of granting the variance from lot coverage, certainly that variance can be removed. with respect to the boat port / canopy structure, that can be included as a condition, the removal of that structure. I guess if we're going down that road, staff would look for some direction with respect to the requirement for plantings. You are dealing with an overlength dock. So I think, we could certainly still impose that condition. I think staff were looking at it largely from a lot coverage factor, but certainly it could still be imposed if you felt that it was warranted. Thank you.
Okay, would you please amend that? Thank you. Okay, so that there's not anything on this that we're voting on, so everyone knows. Moved by member Stokes, second by member Quinn, be it resolved, application A 2924 Sedgwick to demolish an existing boat port to recognize an as-built dock structure is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. To permit a dock to be 70 feet in length from the high water mark. 2, to permit a minimum side yard setback of 6 feet at the closest point from the southeasterly side lot line. To permit a dock to be located in the front yard for a maximum of 15 feet. And these variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition: that amending site plan agreement be entered into along with securities to retain and revegetate the shoreline buffer and to implement the recommendations of the scoped environmental impact study dated February 15, 2024, prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, and that the as-built boat port canopy structure be removed. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decisions. So what we have done, we've taken number 4 out, which is to permit a maximum side yard setback of 13 feet at the closest point from the side lot line for a boathouse or sun shelter. So that's out. And 5, we've taken out to permit a maximum lot coverage of 4,955 square feet, 17.8% over the area of the entire lot. So any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
Next application is A 3024, and that is Ms. Spears again.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 3024 in the names of Clayton, Corneef, and Reed. The subject lands are known municipally as 1919 Mortimer's Point Road, Unit 1, I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 269 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to recognize the as-built stairs and landings that are within the required interior side yard setback. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 12 days in advance of this meeting, and 4 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, stating no objection to the application. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, stating no objection, but the applicants will require a building permit for the as-built stairs and landings. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, listing fire response times and recommending that the applicants consult the Fire Smart Owner's Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. A letter of opposition was received from the southeasterly abutting property owner, Jeffrey Black, following the circulation of comments to committee. I can read the letter in full if committee wishes, or I can summarize.
I'd like to hear it in full if it's not too long.
To whom it may concern, since I was provided less than 1 week's notice of the hearing, I am compelled to send this email being precluded to rearrange my schedule and attend in person on short notice. I brought this matter to the attention of the municipality in August of 2022. I noted that the newly built dock, aside from being materially larger than the legacy dock that it replaced, did not adhere to the legacy property line setback of only 8.7 feet. The dock edge is virtually on the property line, and when the owner's boat is parked there, it is on our shoreline. I was told at the time that the new dock had not been inspected. Now I receive a variance seeking notice for the as-built stairs and landing that did not respect the minimum interior side yard setback of 15 feet. In fact, the current build-out is 70% closer than what is allowed. When is the municipality and the C of A going to respect and govern the rules that are in place? What fines or consequences should the construction company and the property owners face for their disregard for the bylaws that are in place? Back in the late 1990s, the adjacent vacant property on the other side of us was sold and developed. I was shocked by the illegal size of the structure built, which subsequently also added a boathouse. Only a few years later, the property was on the market for sale, and before being listed, needed multiple variances to become legal non-complying. The lot coverage ratio was exceeded and the boathouse did not respect the required property line setback. That matter should not have occurred, and then here we are 27 years later and have to recognize the same negligence on our other flank. My spouse's family has been located on these lands since 1941 and deserve better governance by the municipality for the taxes we pay. I vote that you do not grant the variance, but rather indulge the Muskoka-based construction company to alter their dock, stairs, and landings to be legally compliant with respect to any and all setbacks, or perhaps at the very least, should no changes be mandated by the C of A to occur, that they should extend the courtesy to engage in dialogue with us to compensate us for the negative impact on the value and enjoyment of our property. Respectfully submitted, Jeff Black. So the proposed variance is summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time, but are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here? I believe we have Lanny Dennis.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me and see me?
I can see your finger. I believe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, there I am. Yeah. Just fingering. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, Lanny, good morning. I'm assisting Marie Poirier's office with this file. Her office is 44A King William Street, Huntsville, Ontario, P1H 1G3. Appreciate the efforts of staff bringing the application forward, and concur with the planning department to approve the application. I think what they've identified in the presentation and in their report is a fair and accurate assessment of the proposal. Just to summarize the merits of the proposal, the property has a fairly steep incline to the waterfront. There's limited to no opportunity to the shoreline. Like I said, it's got steep slopes. So there's really only one location to put an access to the shoreline. It seems to be fairly well buffered with existing mature tree cover from the neighbors immediately beside them. It looks like the boathouse is probably the closest structure to the side. It looks like the cottage is sort of around the corner a little bit, if you will, sort of on the opposite side of the lot. The deck and stairs that are in non-compliance sort of lines up with the existing dock in front, which reduces the face print and built form along the shoreline. As much as possible, I'd say that the shoreline is reasonably well vegetated with mature tree cover, reducing and minimizing visual impact. The structure sort of fits into the lay of the land. It complies with all the provisions of the bylaw, and it's a small portion of the overall walkway and stairs / landings are closer than the 15-foot setback requirement. And would respectfully request committee approve the application. I, like staff, believe that it complies, passes the 4 tests of the minor variance, and I don't think that there's any unacceptable adverse impact. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who's wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone in opposition? Questions from the members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I'm just looking at, oh, I see the picture now. The stairs actually could have come down on the other side of that group of trees from what it looks like to me. So I guess the question is, at this point, do you ask somebody to redo all of that? I don't think I'm in favor of that, but I just wonder why it wasn't done the other way, because it looks to me you could just do a mirror image on the other side of the group of trees there. Perhaps that's to the planner.
Would planning staff like to comment on that?
Through you, Chair Edwards, I believe Mr. Dennis would likely be the best to answer that question. Thank you.
I'm looking at page 265. I believe that's where you were showing it.
Yes. Yeah.
And that.
That's
yeah. Yeah. I wasn't I was brought on stream obviously after the construction. I would suspect that probably based on the construction and the site that's available to construct the stairs, that, and I've looked at the shoreline, it is really steep. I'm not convinced that there's an opportunity on the other side to do that. I think it's I think they've done the best they can in order to provide access to the shoreline.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
My only comment is, you know, how this thing is built without a building permit. And at the end of the day, like, you know, I'm sure that the planners have done their best to accommodate without causing undue duress to the owner, are willing to accept, you know, a side yard setback of only a few feet. But the neighbor is not willing to accept that. And I really believe if that was me and I was, this was my neighbor, I wouldn't have waited from 2021 on. I would have been at the township office complaining then, but they're complaining now. And, you know, we do our best to try to control what is going on here. The problem tends to be the owners of real estate here that are the problem here, not the Committee of Adjustment. And in this case, I am in favor of moving this thing and making it compliant, because that dock is plenty wide enough for stairs going somewhere else. That's all I have to say.
Any other questions or comments? Moved by Member Grogan Green, second by Member Bridgman. Be it resolved that application A 3024 Clayton Corniff and Reed to recognize an eligible stairs and landing is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. One, to permit a minimum side yard setback of 4.5 feet from the interior side lot line from stairs and landing. This variance is granted plan shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? That is turned down. That's defeated. And the next application is A 3124, and that is 2497359 Ontario Inc. And that is Ms. Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 3124 in the name of 249759 Ontario Inc. The subject lands are known municipally as 1111 Shanamere Road, Unit 6. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 287 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to construct a new one-story detached garage. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the Township's Manager of Public Works, and Nick Schneider, the Township's Chief Building Official, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Doug Holland, the Township's Fire Prevention Officer, providing emergency fire response times, recommending additional fire prevention and design details beyond the requirements of the Ontario Building Code, and recommending that the owners review the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. The proposed variance is summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee.
Okay. Thank you. And do we have, who do we have here? The owners? Yes, go ahead.
My name is Ian McLaren. I'm Ian McLaren with Ian McLaren Architect, 295 Robinson Street, Oakville, Ontario, L6J1G7. I am here as an agent for the owners. We are in agreement with the staff report. It's the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I would like to take an opportunity to address some comments in Ms. Beamish's report about a new road that she saw down to the lakeside. This is a construction road only. It's used for site access for constructing the boathouse, the dock, and then the boathouse that's under construction now. Material storage was there also, and there's also the base of the crane for lifting steel from the material storage to the boathouse during construction. The owners fully intend to remediate this area, reinstate the shoreline buffer. If you know the Rennies, you'll know that they've maintained the property in beautiful condition since they've owned it in the 1980s, and we're happy to commit to that remediation through the probable site plan agreement process, which I think will be part of the approval here. To come back to the garage for a moment, as I say, we released the forecast of the Planning Act, and in my opinion, the 10.8% lot coverage and its location 110 feet from the lake show that it's minor. It's certainly desirable for the future use of the property. Be happy to answer any questions.
Right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak on this application? In either support or opposition? Okay, any questions from the members? Yes.
I guess the one concern is this parking area that nobody seemed to know about until fairly recently. And its proximity to the shoreline, and as I understand it, that will become a bylaw issue. Can committee defer the approval of the proposed garage until such time as that parking issue is managed by bylaw?
Want to answer that?
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Certainly a deferral for that reason would be within committee's purview, but I would just caution that considerations related to enforcement should be separated from your decisions with respect to the garage. There's a process in play that will ensure that, you know, any of the concerns related to the driveway and parking area are addressed either through enforcement or the township's site plan process if the application is approved, or a combination of both. So I think at this point, you know, my advice would be to keep them separate. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
So then the best course of action is to approve this amendment and then let bylaw do its work. That's what you're saying?
Yes, in abbreviated form. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? No? Moved by member Brown, second by member Grogan Green, be resolved that application A 3124, that's 2497359 Ontario Inc., to construct a one-story detached garage is hereby approved, with the following variance being granted. One, to permit maximum lot coverage of 8,289.5 square feet, 18.8% within 200 feet of the high water mark. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions?
Just clarify this number here for me.
It's
You said-
10.88%
Thank you.
within 200 feet of the high water mark. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks. And we're up, and now it's A 3324 Franklin, that is Ms. Crowder.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 3324 in the name of Franklin. The subject lands are known municipally as 1411 Windermere Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plans on pages 303 and 304. The purpose and effect of the application is to construct a wood shop / storage building that exceeds the maximum permitted height. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 12 days in advance of this meeting, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, and Tim Sopko, the township's manager of public works, stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the township fire prevention officer, stating that the calculated fire response time is 15 minutes and 41 seconds based on the average shoot time of the fire department in the last 36 months and a travel distance of 8.1 kilometers from the fire station. This response time is outside of the NFPA rural response time objective of 14 minutes. When response is outside of the rural response time objective, it is prudent to subject developments to additional design requirements beyond the minimum in the building code, potentially including fire sprinklers, increased spatial separations, and building materials of higher fire resistance ratings. As construction will be occurring on the property, we encourage pre-planning with the fire department concerning fire risks during this vulnerable phase of development. Consideration should be given when landscaping to include fire-resistant plants and materials to help prevent the spread of wildfires. The Fire Smart Homeowner's Manual should be consulted to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. The table summarizing the extent of the proposed variance is in the staff report and was included in the circulation materials that can be found in the agenda package. Relief is being sought from the maximum accessory structure height of 20 feet in the rural area. The proposed workshop / storage building is to be 24.5 feet in height. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowder. Is the applicant's agent here? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, hi, I'm the applicant's agent, Adam Lenny, the permit guy, 35 Covered Bridge Trail, Bracebridge, P1L 1Y1. Through you, Chair, and thank you for hearing us today. This application is to permit an increased height on an accessory structure of 4.5 feet, which we feel is minor in nature. The structure can't be seen from the road, and the built form will have no effect to anyone from the road or neighbors. With regards to the comments from the emergency services, we will definitely be reaching out to them, but the spatial separation to the nearest structure is 140 feet away. The homeowner will prune all vegetation so that it's well beyond the building envelope to help reduce the spread of wildfires. We feel this meets all the tests of a minor variance, and thank you for hearing me today. I'm here for any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support? Anyone in opposition? Questions for the members? Yes.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. I just have a question in terms of our new OP. I know we raised the accessory buildings to 25 feet in the lakefront area. Did we do this in the rural area too?
Through you, Chair Edwards, to Member Bridgman, my understanding is that the height for accessory structures was raised in the waterfront area, and only, and that was implemented. But that the accessory structure height in the rural area or any of the other designations has not yet been increased to 25 feet. But it is factual that in the waterfront area, it's 25 feet.
Okay, any other questions? You had a question, Member Stokes?
Yeah, is with respect to the fire request from Doug Holland on the sprinkler systems, et cetera, is that something that we would put into the resolution, or is that something that?
No, I'll ask staff, but I don't believe so. It's an option that somebody can do, especially for an accessory building. I will ask, yes.
Through you, Chair Edwards, this is sort of a standard comment that we receive, and we do have a copy of the Fire Smart Homeowners Manual that we can distribute to property owners. But as far as incorporating like additional fire prevention measures, I don't think that that's something that we can or do typically impose through the planning committee. I think it's something that's handled at the building stage. I don't see anybody jumping up to correct me, so. Yeah, so I think it's just a measure that says like, you know, because you're outside of the response time, we would recommend you take these additional measures, but the building code doesn't make you take those measures if you're a certain distance from the fire station. So I think it's more of a best measures.
So who is it that makes that recommendation to the homeowner?
So through you, Chair Edwards, Douglas Holland is the township's fire prevention officer. And so he has made this recommendation that when they are planning to decide on, you know, building materials and landscaping and the actual submission for building permit, that they consult with the fire department before submitting that building permit. So I would say the recommendation comes from fire, our emergency services division.
So that's been made directly to the homeowner.
That's right. So that recommendation, the comments, the application was circulated to emergency services, and this comment is for the homeowner to take from here.
Right, any other questions? Moved by member Quinn, second by member Brown, be it resolved that application A 3324 Franklin to construct a workshop storage building is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a workshop storage building to be a maximum of 24.5 feet in height. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you for your time.
The next application is A 3924 Holloway. And it's again, Ms. Beers.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 3924 in the name of Holloway. The subject lands are known municipally as 1020 Hunt Road, unit number 7. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 325 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to demolish an existing dwelling and shed and to construct a new dwelling and single-story boathouse with associated docks. Please note that the township's Committee of Adjustment approved a recent minor variance application A 1224 in March 2024, approving the same variances as proposed in the current application. However, the applicants are now proposing a revised dwelling configuration. Hence, they have submitted this current application. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 13 days in advance, and 3 comments have been received to date. Comments were received from Tim Sopko, the township's manager of public works, and Nick Snyder, the township's chief building official, both stating no objection to the application. Comments were also received from Douglas Holland, the township's fire prevention officer, listing fire response times and recommending that the applicants consult the Fire Smart Owner's Manual to understand how treatments to the property influence wildfire spread. He also recommended that as construction will be occurring on the property, we encourage pre-planning with the fire department concerning fire risks during this vulnerable phase of development. The proposed variances are summarized as shown on the screen. This table was included in the circulation materials and can be found in the agenda package. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended that the application be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? We have somebody? Okay.
Thank you, Chair Edwards and the committee for spending your time with me today. My name is Bob Holloway. My wife and I own the property. It is a minor variance for an additional 1% of lot coverage for a total of 11% within 200 feet of the shoreline. It's the identical proposal or request that would have been made on March 11th that was approved with one exception. And that is when we got onto the site to put it in place, we realized that there was a better way to position the building so that we could minimize tree removal and minimize destruction of a rock outcropping that runs halfway in the middle of the property. The easiest way that I can present that is this is the floor plan of the building. This may be hard to see. I can pass it around. So this is the original garage location, attached garage. We simply have slid that garage down to this portion of the property. So there. Pass that on to you. I also built a while ago kind of an interesting model. This is the driveway side of it, and what it represents is this is where the original attached garage was. We simply have slid it down here. So that is the difference in the application. What it does is it changes the setbacks. It makes the rear yard setback be 67 feet and the side yard setbacks be 24 feet and 10 inches and 28 feet and 9 inches, all of which are in compliance with zoning. Again, the reason that we did this is we found a better way to minimize the impact on the lot itself. No one will see this at all, you know, from the lakeside, which would be here. So, and thank you, sir. And anyway, this continues to meet the 4 tests of a minor variance, and we think it's minor and hope that you do too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to get support? Anyone in opposition?
We need his address for the record.
Oh, yes, we'll need your address for the.
Oh, I'm sorry. My address is 112 Douglas Drive, and that's in Toronto. The postal code is M4W2B5.
Okay, if there's no questions, I'll read this. Moved by member Bridgman, second by member Stokes, be it resolved that application A 3924 Holloway to demolish an existing dwelling and shed and to construct a new dwelling and a single-story boathouse with associated docks is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 3,061.5 square feet, which is 10.5% over the area of the entire lot. 2, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 3,061.5 square feet, 11% within 200 feet of the high water mark. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. And I will say, sir, that was an excellent presentation for somebody in that. No, it was very good. And I will say, being next to last, I'm sure you enjoyed the morning. Good. Well, thank you very much and have a good day. And then we have some unfinished business, I believe. And that is P 4222 ML. And that is Ms. Beamish.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. As the applicants of application B 4222 ML were in the process of fulfilling their conditions of consent, staff discovered a clerical error within the notice of decision. Condition IVB of consent application B 4222 ML, Ferdinand Holdings Ltd, states that adequate long-term parking and docking facilities used to access the severed lot be secured at all times. However, the severed lot is developed with a dwelling and existing access, while the retained lot is vacant and accessed by water only. Staff are recommending that the provisional approval of consent application B 4222 ML be amended by replacing condition IVB with the following: that adequate long-term parking and docking facilities used to access the retained lot be secured at all times. Thank you.
Okay, and I don't think there's anyone here to speak on this. It's just an amendment, so any questions or comments? Moved by member Stokes, second by member Bridgman, be it resolved that provisional approval consent application B 4222 ML Rhineland Holdings be amended by replacing condition 4B with the following: that adequate long-term parking and docking facilities used to access the retained lot be secured at all times. This application reforms to the requirement of comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014 and as amendment in the township official plan and the district of Muskoka official plan. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Okay. And there's no other business, so I'll read this. Moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Quinn. Be it resolved, the meeting hereby adjourns at 11:59 a.m. All those in favor? That is carried.